Welcome everyone to What's New in QuickBooks 2014 for you. And by you, we mean you as accounting professionals, and that means what's new in QuickBooks Accountant 2014. If you want to know about the comprehensive new features of QuickBooks, including Pro and Premier, we encourage you to watch the recorded on-demand webinar, What's New in QuickBooks for your clients. There is a handout for today's course, and you can get that handout at www.intuitacademy.com/materials. Okay, there's a handout specific to this course, and then there is a comprehensive guide that covers all of the new features of QuickBooks Pro, Premier, Accountant, Enterprise, Mac, and QuickBooks Online. So go out and check that out at intuitacademy.com/materials. That's a great complement to today's webinar. So what are we going to cover in the webinar today? We're first going to cover who I am. I'm one of the presenters. I am the CEO of Woodard Consulting Group, the host of the Scaling New Heights Conference for QuickBooks Pro Advisors. I'm the host of the National Advisor Network, the nation's largest independent network of certified QuickBooks Pro Advisors. And in 2012, I was honored to be deemed by Accounting Today one of the top 100 most influential people in the accounting industry. It's a real honor to have that. You can get more great training resources at two websites, www.intuitacademy.com, and then there is www.scalingnewheights.com. That's the Scaling New Heights Conference website. The next ProAdvisor conference coming up that we conduct in cooperation with Intuit is in June of 2014. All right. So in this brief webinar, and it's brief because there are three key but critical new features in QuickBooks Accountant 2014. We're going to cover what those new features are in the Accountant 2014. There is that comprehensive guide, so don't feel like you have to scribble anything down. Just relax, have fun, enjoy the class, and know that the resources are there at intuitacademy.com/materials. The learning objectives for today are those new features of QuickBooks Accountant, understanding the new client Collaborator, the flagship product of the QuickBooks Accountant 2014, and to leverage the full power of QuickBooks Accountant to work more efficiently with your clients. At the end of the day, we want you to learn and use and work more efficiently in QuickBooks with your clients and for your clients. So let's start with that client Collaborator. Client Collaborator, improved batch entered transactions, improved client data review. All of those are going to be covered in today's webinar, beginning with that client Collaborator, the flagship product. What problem is Client Collaborator addressing? It's addressing a correspondence problem. We might have a transaction in QuickBooks, say for example to Walmart. Walmart, we have absolutely no idea what the client bought. It could have been office supplies, it could have been fixed assets, it could have been personal expense, who knows? It's a crapshoot. So we send an email to the client and we ask about each Walmart transaction, each Staples, each Kroger, each, wherever they might travel. How much was personal? How much was business? How much was meals travel? How much was meals and entertainment? We don't know the answer to all of these questions. So we send emails. Email after email after email, which gets reply after reply after reply. Sometimes we'll ask 5 questions in an email. The client will answer 2 of the 5. Sometimes we'll ask 1 question in email. The client will give us 5 answers, some of which aren't even relevant. So tying these responses out to the proper questions and tying those all out to the transactions in QuickBooks can make us feel buried in client-responded emails. So you might think, hey, I'll just pick up the telephone, give that client a call. Well, that can be more efficient as we scribble madly all the different answers that person is rattling off the phone. Notice how happy the client is and how worrisome and burdened down with work the accounting professional is. That also can represent reality. But the problem here, even though it's efficient, even though we can get a lot of answers to our questions quickly, there's no audit trail. There's no auditable process in the workflow that validates what the client said and verifies what the client said, why they said it, when they said it, if there's ever an audit or any other reason to question the posting of a transaction. Okay, so along comes Client Collaborator, where if I have this check to Staples, I can document the transaction, or my questions, excuse me, not the transaction. I can document the questions about the transaction right in the transaction interface. What was purchased? Ask. The client then gets an email. They can go into their QuickBooks product on their copy of QuickBooks. So I'm working in a copy of their QuickBooks. They have a copy of QuickBooks. They go into their copy. The questions are living now in their data file. They can answer them, and those answers push through with an email notification into my copy of their QuickBooks. So we're just passing these conversations back and forth within our respective copies of the QuickBooks file, all with the proper transaction references, with the payee, numbers, types, dates. So it's a log, it's a work paper, it's a workflow that is verified that stays with that file forever. All right, so you associate the question with a specific transaction. Your client provides an answer directly in their QuickBooks file. No emails, no time on the phone. Everything is validated. Now, I am joined today with my co-presenter, Laura Madera. Laura Madera is a published author on QuickBooks. She is a veteran trainer, contracted trainer for Intuit and other training organizations, and it is an honor to have her with us today. So, Laura, why don't you join us and show us how this client collaborator works in a live environment.
Great, Joe. I'm happy to do that. Let me share my screen. All right, everyone should be seeing an email. Let me explain about Client Collaborator. Again, what Joe said, it's solving for communication about specific transactions. So we're not solving for actually fixing the transactions. That's something else. This is just the communication about fixes that need to be done or questions that are being asked by the accounting professional during some sort of review. Now, it's important to know that your clients cannot begin the collaboration with you. Oh, you'd be, covered with emails and questions. No, instead, you get to start the collaboration. You, as the accounting professional, initiate it. What happens is you're in your client's file, you're looking at transactions, and you have questions. And you start the process by inviting your client to join in what's titled a transaction conversation. Now, the email that you see here is an automated email that Client Collaborator sends back to you, the accounting professional, after your client has accepted your invitation. So again, you're inviting the client to participate in Client Collaborator. Now, your client must be using QuickBooks 2014 Desktop, so Pro, Premier, or Enterprise, but it must be a 2014 edition. What you will do is when you get this email, it's as simple as clicking on this link. As soon as you click on this link, you are instantly collaborating with your client within the file at your office. Now, it's worthwhile to tell you as well, it doesn't matter what type of file you get from the client. It does not have to be accountant's copy, doesn't have to be a backup or a portable. It can be any of those. It doesn't have to be a specific type. Again, we're not solving for fixing. We're solving for communication. So let me show you how that works. I'm going to go ahead and open my QuickBooks file, and let's go ahead and fill the screen with our Accountant Center. Now, I personally love working with the Accountant Center. This is my customizable set of tools, and I'm going to show you how Client Collaborator works by starting from the Reclassified Transactions. This might be a common place for me to review the client's file. And I simply scroll down the list looking at the expenses. I'm going to go ahead and look at computer repairs because that seems a little high. Gee, there's a $2,700 computer repair. That's the count they've classified it to. So again, I'm the accountant. I've got the accountant's hat on. I'm going to open that bill. And when I look at the bill, I'm looking for a memo, and true to form, the client doesn't have any details for me, so I need to ask a question. With the transaction displayed, from the Accountant menu, I can select Ask Client About Transaction. Also, with the Release 3, that's Maintenance Release 3, you have that same option here up on the gray bar, Ask Client About Transaction. Now, I will tell you in the setup, when you invited the client, you put in the client's email address that your client chose to work with you on. So that's how it knows what email to send back and forth. And when your client accepted your invitation for the collaboration, they also had to input your email. So that's how some of the email communications are going on, but they're all automated. So I had a question. So what was this purchase for? Just simple. I don't need to be elaborate. I keep it simple. Now I can select Add and close the list, the transaction list, and move on to the next client's file, and wait until I finish to send a request to the client. Or what I'm going to do is add and open the conversation list. Let me see what's accumulated in my several days of review or whatever time period I've used to review the client's file. So I'm at the accountant's office. I've got a copy, any type of copy, but it must be a 2014 copy of the client's file. And you can see I've started to do some work. Here was a question on an insurance bill, and I've asked the client to please assign that to auto insurance. It must have been assigned to the wrong expense account. Here's a monthly truck payment, and I realized, gee, I need to get that loan statement from last year in order to finish the financials. Again, any kind of question you want to have connected with a transaction, it's easy. You just do it here, and here's the last question that I ask. Now, as I mentioned, you can continue this for as long as you need to before you send any request for the client to reply. When I select the Notify Client, Client Collaborator is automatically sending a summary notification to the client. I'm going to show you what that notification looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm going to do some switching around here, and I'm going to put on the hat of the accountant. I'm going to put on the hat of the client. Boy, it's hard playing both roles here. So let me go over to my client side. I'm running really quick to get to their office. And let's go ahead and open the QuickBooks. Oh, let's look at the email. That's what I wanted to show you first. So this is representative of the email that your client receives. A single email. We have 3 or 4. We could have 50 or 100 questions. The detail of those questions is not in the email content. All that's showing in the email content are instructions for them to open their QuickBooks file. Now here's what I want to make absolutely clear in this short webinar. Client Collaborator, as Joe mentioned, is a collaboration that's held in the cloud. So it's not really associated with an individual file. In fact, a few months later, a year later, you're going to get another copy of the client's file to work with for the next year's review, and you're going to be able to still see older transaction collaboration. So this is what your client gets, and it's easy. What's really nice is the client doesn't have to leave their QuickBooks file. So here I'm in QuickBooks Pro 2014. The instructions told me to go to the Company menu, View Conversation List, and I might need to log in. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Again, these are all emails and logins that were set up originally when the collaboration began. And I am now, as the client, going to see each of the questions my accountant had. And I can respond here, yes, I will make the change. Let's see, can you provide me, yes, I'll get that for you. And, oh, I forgot to tell him, yes, this was the new server for the office. You ever tried to type and talk? All right, so these are all answers or replies that I'm providing to the accountant and adding them to the conversation list. Now, I could close this and come back and finish it. I could do it at a time that's convenient. When I'm complete and I'm ready, I can select Notify Accountant. This is all that has to be done. Client Collaborator is actually doing all the communications behind the scenes. Now let me quickly put on my running shoes, and we're going to run back to the accountant's office. So you see me do a little tricky work here, and I'm going to go back in the accountant's office. So the accountant received a very simple summarized email. Your client has some replies for you and instructs the accountant to go to Accountant, View Conversation List. Again, nothing detailed in those email communications, no specifics, just summary. Client Collaborator, by the way, will stay active for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes of inactivity, it will close and you'll have to log back in. Now, obviously, if hours or days have gone by, you were in another client's file. Just simply open up the client's file that you were originally working in here, and you can see the Client Collaborator replies that the client has provided. You can remove those replies from the accountant and just see the clients. You also have the privilege, only the accountant has the privilege to mark a transaction conversation as closed, so that once it's resolved and finished, we no longer need to show that to our client. So Client Collaborator is truly solving for the communication trail that can be so cumbersome by email or by phone. It truly makes it easy to work with our clients' files. It's held in the cloud. We need to make sure that our clients are on QuickBooks 2014. Hey, Joe, is it time to turn it back over to you?
Well, it is, Laura, and I want to stress a couple of things here. Like you said, the client has to be on 14. You have to be on QuickBooks Accountant 2014 Plus, which the Plus subscription of QuickBooks Accountant 2014 is part of the ProAdvisor Program membership. So the easiest way to make sure that you have everything you need is just join the ProAdvisor Program. And I want to stress that Client Collaborator does work in the Enterprise Solutions Accountant as well, if that Enterprise Solutions Accountant was purchased through your ProAdvisor Program. So you're going to get more software for a smaller investment, plus all the other benefits of the ProAdvisor Program and all the software that will run this tool. Simple purchase, less money. So I encourage you to join the ProAdvisor Program if you haven't done so already. And if you are in that program, you have all the software you need. Hey, Laura, are you showing them batch transactions?
I will.
Fantastic.
Did you show them the slides? I wasn't watching. Did you finish all those slides?
Yeah, I just figure we'll just go straight from the demo. Take it away.
Okay, you got it. Perfect. All right, so let's talk about another improved feature for QuickBooks for us, for the accounting professionals, and it's the Batch Enter Transactions feature. What's new for 2014, we can now add to the checks, deposits, and credit cards, which we've had already. We can now enter bills, vendor bills and bill credits, customer invoices, and credit memos simply and easily. So I'm going to select invoices and credit memos. Now, I could just work a row at a time, entering the data that's required in each of these fields to my accounts receivable. I also can customize my columns. Customizing the columns would be extremely useful if you were using an Excel spreadsheet, as I'm going to demonstrate, to copy and paste. You want to make sure that each of the columns that are displayed are in the same order as your Excel spreadsheet. So what does Batch Enter Transactions solve for? Well, if you are doing work for a client after the fact, it can be a great tool for that. If the client has some sort of after-the-fact activity, like they have a web store and they're able to download their sales directly into an Excel spreadsheet or their costs into an Excel spreadsheet, these are methods that prove to be very valuable for using Batch Enter Transactions. But I'm going to point out a couple of things. each row, and this is particular for invoices, credits, and checks as well, and vendor bills, each row is an individual transaction. So this is an individual one-line invoice. Should you need additional detail for the invoice, you would just simply click on the split with the row selected, and then you could continue adding additional rows of detail for that particular invoice. So let me show you how this would work if I had an Excel spreadsheet. So let's start with this one here. Here's an Excel spreadsheet. Of course, I only have a few here, but do know that you can import thousands of transactions. Here's just some simple one-line invoices. So I'm going to just copy that data, go back into my QuickBooks, place my mouse in the first row and first cell, and select Paste. And QuickBooks properly puts all of the detail in here directly into the right fields according to the order that I have them in. If a customer or job did not exist, you can enter a new one here. And if I wanted to add terms to the invoices, I could hand pick them here if they were not already on my Excel spreadsheet. You also stay in complete control because they're not entered into the QuickBooks file until you select Save Transactions, as I'm going to do here. You're asked to confirm that the proper AR account is selected, and these transactions are now being added directly in, and one was unable to be added. So let's see. I would have to finish it out by adding a customer and job. It looks like it was one more extra row on it. So you want to be careful and watch what's actually input. Now let me show you quickly also for checks, because this is not new for 2014, but it has been around and it's a terrific use for after the fact. Same concept. I'm going to copy the data. Going to go over to the QuickBooks file, make sure I have checks selected, the proper account, and customize the columns as I saw fit, and then paste the data. Anytime you see anything in red, that indicates that that payee is not in the QuickBooks file. Hey, it's easy to handle. Just place your mouse in that field using the Tab key, decide if you want to quick add or do a formal setup, and decide what list you want to put that item on. It was that easy. And then simply select Save Transactions, and the checks are being added automatically into the QuickBooks file. It just couldn't be easier to work with batch enter transactions, new and improved, for QuickBooks 2014.
Yeah, I agree. It's always been a fantastic tool, Laura, and now that we can do those bills and bill credits, those invoices and credit memos, it just expands the capability out around even more. And if somebody has a payee or an account that's not there, highlights it in red, tells us that we need to add those before the batch entry can be done. So it's really foolproof. And if you want to quickly enter transactions, even if you don't have them in a spreadsheet and you're doing client write-up work after the fact entry, you can enter straight into this. You don't have to copy-paste. Copy-paste is just the fastest way to pull in transactions you might have exported from a bank account or credit card statement or something like that. So thanks for showing that to us, Laura. We've got one more new feature in QuickBooks Accountant 2014, an enhancement to client data review. Do you want to show us that one?
I am. I'm going to show you that. It has to be back in the Reclassified Transactions feature, which is, by the way, part of Client Data Review. I've just simply customized my Accountant Center to make sure I have that tool that I use frequently. If I were to begin my review, and I'm going to change this to balance sheet accounts. So let's talk about what's new for 2014. What's new is up here in the right. We can select to reclassify the from account. Now we could always reclassify the to account. Instead of putting it to fuel, I needed it to go to insurance, and likewise. But now what we can do is reclassify the from account. I don't know if any accountants on this call have ever had this situation where a client has called in frantically. They've opened a new bank account, and the bookkeeper inadvertently paid all of the vendor bills. There were 50 of them, and she put them to the wrong bank account. And they're frantic about how they can get those into the right bank account. Well, this is where this new Reclassify From would work. Simply select the bank account that was in error, pick the transactions that were posted in error in that account, go down to the bottom and select Reclassify To, and I will tell you, it's only going to let you reclassify to an account of the same category. So a bank can only be reclassified to another bank, an other current liability to another other current liability type. But let's go ahead and post them here to savings, because that's the account that they were technically paid out of. And now we look at savings, and we have those transactions conveniently reclassified to the proper, in this case, the proper bank account. So that's what's new and improved in the client data review tool, specifically in Reclassified Transactions.
Thank you so much for showing that to us, Laura. And for those of you who have not used the QuickBooks Accountant, it used to be called Accountant Edition, but QuickBooks Accountant in the past, we do strongly encourage you to explore all of the features that are available in that product. I'm showing you a couple of the flagship products here on this slide. You've got export, import of journal entries. You can just import, export a journal entry and import that right into any QuickBooks file. Fixed Asset Manager, QuickBooks Statement Writer, File Manager, and the ability to open and work with client accountants' copies and export those changes through to your clients. So it's a fantastic tool, and again, it's a tool where you can get the most bang for your buck by joining the ProAdvisor Program, where the QuickBooks Accountant 2014 Plus and Enterprise Solutions Accountant is built in. So, what did we cover today? Laura and I helped you identify new features that will help you work more efficiently with your clients' files, helped you to understand new and improved features in QuickBooks Accountant 2014, and it's our hope that through this webinar and its sister webinar, the What's New for Your Clients in 2014, you're going to be able to evaluate and recommend the right QuickBooks software for your client. Do they need Pro? Do they need Premier? And the million-dollar question, do they need to upgrade? So between this webinar, where you can better support your clients if you and they are on 14, and the other webinar where you can see the benefits directly to your client in their use of QuickBooks, you can make that informed recommendation for your own firm and for your clients. Now, if you want more of that QuickBooks training, you can go to intuitacademy.com. Specific to the new features of 14, it's intuitacademy.com/what's new, and the QuickBooks Pro Advisor Conference, as well as some on-demand free webinar training at scalingnewheights.com. So, Laura, thank you so much for joining us today for the new features of QuickBooks Accountant 2014. Great presentation. Great having you with us.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this on-demand webinar, QuickBooks Accountant. This does end our session. Take care and have a nice day.